And that's so true, Jeff. Like you just, sounds like you were talking to Frank Lake recently, because he's done a lot of thinking about the trail systems and how the trail systems were really a key spatial a key point of spatial organization around food access and distribution. And there's also kind of a seasonal round. So there's people who are not necessarily settling in one place, and at different times in the season. In the summer, you go up to the high country, and so the management practices are time and space bound, where you're moving on an annual basis and burning in different places and gathering in different places. So it's very much spatial, and in a contemporary sense, it's different, but it still applies. Like people collect acorns from the trees on the side of the road, you know, and so those resources are really quite valuable. The actual fishing places have changed, but there's still, you know, the priority is to take care of the places of fishing areas that are accessible. So this question of accessing food is also about routes, movement routes.
Has Frank or anyone else looked at sort of the locational characteristics of acorn production, space and time, and just how those patterns do move? Are they by the side of the road because they're accessible, or because there's an opening that promotes acorns, or just what's really going on? Something like that.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think right now the conversation has been accessibility, but the problem of one of the neat things about the agroforestry policy is it starts to say, well, we should be managing the forest for the correct light conditions for the product that we need. And so that's a major problem with these really dense, non-managed forests, as they get really closed in and they get really dark. And even kind of the forest industry, I think Bill Stewart was telling me, has like a tagline of "let in the light," right? And I'm like, that's brilliant. And it actually, this is a management idea though that's shared with the tribe, because they're also very concerned about the loss of meadows and encroachment on all of the meadows, unless it's like a serpentine meadow that's hard for.
Another catchline is "let there be light." Comes as
That's
roots.
from a higher order too. I like that.
Well, the timber industry was never modest.
That's good.
I had kind of a general question.
Yeah.
Just because this is, well, I guess I was wondering how the idea of food came up, because I know what you do research on, and so food seems, at least for me in the context of what you're researching, like a new thing. And I was wondering if that was something that was explicitly brought up by the members of the Kara community, where they said food is something that we're, like it's a lens of you know, what we're examining when we're trying to maintain these or change these practices in the forest. So I was curious to know if that was something that they brought up themselves.
I think it's co-produced. It came up initially in a formalized way through Kari Norgaard's report in 2005 of denied access to traditional foods, and that was produced in the context of dam removal hearings, and that report was directed at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is making the decisions or trying to relicense its dams. So her point was, by building these dams, you have shut off tribal access to these foods, and that has led to epidemic levels of disease and costs associated with diabetes and heart disease. And so she did all these amazing interviews, having people talk about how much fish they used to eat and how much fish they eat now. So obviously this is a complex thing, but she was particularly pointing the finger at the dams. And so the causation and pattern on that is, you know, multiplicitous. But that's where food started. So a lot of these resource access questions, you know, were, I think the environmental justice lens at that point was a bit stronger, but the food access allowed the environmental justice claim to be made. And now